Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to a monster analysis on Clipeum. With all the movements in the underworld and evil legions, the good legions are working hard to reinforce their ranks. That's how they come up with the finest piece of what you could call divine technology. Clipeum has been designed by the angels to protect and support heavenly warriors. And so here we have our newest and latest light legendary tank. And I gotta tell you, as of the time recording this video, the tanks are kind of taking over Monster Legends. They become a lot more prominent. In the past, you would hear me say that I am really biased against tanks. I don't really like tanks. They didn't serve a real important purpose in Monster Legends. Well, Social Point has completely changed that because the tanks are truly dominating the game. And with that being said, let's get into this analysis of Clipeum. His power is 3454, which is nothing too impressive in the light category. His life, on the other hand, 45,541 is very impressive. Clipeum is officially the tankiest light legendary monster, outplacing the War Master Elvira, who has a life stat of 41,922. So this monster beats him by a little over 3,500 points. And furthermore, when you take into consideration every single legendary monster, every single legendary element in the game, this monster officially has the third highest life stat. In first place is Dun Ra, who's a dark legendary monster. Then is Sergeant Hawhead with 46,144. Dun Ra, by the way, has 46,446. And then we have this monster Clipeum with 45,544, who, by the way, displays Fatted, who has 45,239. So incredibly tanky monster with a speed stat of 3,388, which honestly, considering this is a tank, it doesn't matter too much. This monster is not the type of monster that you really need to go first. A lot of time with tanks, it's actually to their benefit if they're a little slower, because that way they can tank more techs, especially if they have a taunt skill, or now the Mega Taunt skill. And speaking of the taunt skill, this monster has the trait Taunt. How incredible is that? We saw this with the Team Race monster Brutalis, and I'm sure lots of you have been utilizing Brutalis plus dodge area combos, or maybe Brutalis plus evasion. There's so many things you can do with a monster that has taunts. There's just so many things, and now we're getting another monster. But on top of just having the taunt trait, this monster also has Celestial. Celestial is something we haven't seen in a while. One monster that comes to mind that has this is Ragniel, and I believe Azuriel from the Metal Element. What Celestial does, it basically gives a monster immunity to the following: Stun, Mega Stun, and Bleeding. So this monster has protection against one DOT, one torture effect, guaranteed, Bleeding, which is great, because one of the best ways to kill tanks is to get rid of their HP by damage over time, because it doesn't matter how much HP you have, 10% is still 10%. And then the fact that this monster is protected against Stun and Mega Stun, that's incredible. So now you really only have to worry about possession and being frozen. So phenomenal trait. And what's more is that this tank is truly a tank because you can tell by the relic slots. You can hold an armor and you can hold a shield. And with the armors, there's so much to choose from, right? Specifically, I imagine most players maybe have the gold ones. So when the turn starts, the wearer gains X amount of armor, or after being hit, so the heavy duty armor, you gain 9,650 points of armor at level 1. So this one's probably the more useful, considering you're going to be tanking a lot of hits, considering you have the taunt trait. If you happen to have a Tomb's armor, that's also very good. If you happen to have Thetis' armor, that could also be utilized. Looking at some other stuff, they're not really that great. You really want to go gold and above. As for the other relics, as for the shields, well, use whatever you can. If you have Tenacity Shield, that's honestly the best. You give yourself a shield, you give your teammates a shield. Well, I say the best in terms of protection for your whole team. If you have something like, which one is it? Heroim's Shield. After being hit, gives armor, and it deals earth damage to the enemy. You know, this is really great to kill a Zyla or a Voltic. And then especially because you yourself have the taunt trait, so Zyla and Voltic have no choice but to attack you. So an incredibly powerful monster, incredibly tanky HP stat, really good trait, really good relic slots, and that's just the beginning with this monster. By the way, fantastic design, great job Social Point yet again. Looking at the skills, let's just start off with the ultimate. I think this is insane. Blocks all damage except light element for all allies. That's the Photophobic Shield. It lasts for 2 turns. Elvira has a skill like this, right? You apply this to a monster, that monster will take no damage unless it is from a light-based attack. And considering this monster is light-based himself, he's taking 50% less damage. And also, there's really not that many strong legendary light attackers. Most people will use an Elvira or some other monster that's more supportive, because that's what the light category is. More of a supportive legendary monster. Applies Megaton to itself. Megaton it'll last for 3 turns. And Megaton is just insane because everything will be attracted to you. Every area control skill, so you do take triple damage. So let's say a skill was to deal 10k damage to all of the enemy monsters. If you have Megaton, you'll take all of that damage. You'll absorb 30,000 damage. The thing is though, considering you're also putting on your photophobic shield, you're gonna be pretty safe unless it's a light-based AoE. On top of that, it applies protect positive effects to itself. So even if the enemy wanted to remove your Megaton and your shield, your photophobic shield, they're not going to be able to do it unless they remove negative effects twice. The first time to remove the positive effects protected, and the next time to remove the Megaton and the shield. So that's incredible. This is a game-changing ultimate, even though it's not something like wipes out the whole field, deals 90 massive light damage, applies sunburn, applies bleeding, applies this, applies that. This is a pretty game-changing ultimate because you get the photophobic shield, you get the Megatons. They can't be removed unless the enemy removes positive effects twice. And oh yeah, you also heal your whole team by 50%. That's awesome. And again, this monster isn't fast. So if you get your ultimate like on the first turn, the battle's pretty much yours. This is a phenomenal ultimate attack. Especially because while you have the positive effects protected, you can also, like, if you apply more stuff on this monster, if you apply, I don't know, a damage mirror, a skill mirror, like, that's awesome. The enemy really can't touch you. Phenomenal ultimate. Let me know what you guys think about the ultimate in the comments below, please. I am really looking forward to hearing you guys' thoughts. Moving on to Skills Group 1, I looked this over really quickly and I was quite impressed that Skills Group 1 is so good. So even taking a look at this skill, it deals 35 damage, 21 stamina, costs 1 turn cooldown, it applies Sunburn and Daze. This is really good for a Skills Group 1 skill. Yeah, sure, it's a single target, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with single targets, especially in a world where dodge area trait exists. And I've gotten into some battles where all of my monsters only have AoE skills, and I can't touch those monsters like O'Reilly, like Shade Moon. So single target attacks have also gained a good amount of usage in Monster Legends. But what I like about this is that normally Skills Group 1 are like 50% chance to Sunburn, 50% chance to Daze. Nope, this one is a guaranteed Sunburn, guaranteed Daze, assuming the attack lands, and the enemy doesn't have like Hardened Plus trait. And yeah, Sunburn will reduce HP by 15% for the next 3 turns. It also reduces accuracy by 15%. And then Daze will reduce damage output by 25% and accuracy by 25%. Really great skill for Skills Group 1. That being said, this monster has a lot better skills. Speaking of which, take a look at this one. Humanitas. Removes all negative side effects from one ally. So whatever DLT they have, whatever control skill they have, it's gone. Applies stamina regen to one ally. That's good so they can recover stamina. And you give yourself 1 immediate extra turn. I like this. It has a 20 stamina cost and a 3 turn cooldown. I like this because you can get rid of any negative ailments on one of your teammates and restore some of their stamina when it's their turn. And you give yourself an immediate extra turn. Any single extra turn skill is definitely worth running, so a must-have skill for this monster. For a tank that can also support with this kind of skill, that's phenomenal. Moving on, this skill gives 50% of stamina to all of your allies. This costs no stamina and has a 4 turn cooldown. So if you ever are facing enemies that have a lot of stamina drain, let's say you face someone that has the Oblation Staff that just wipes all of your allies' stamina, or maybe, maybe Thetis is still a threat. This is the kind of skill that can counter it, so it could definitely prove to be quite useful. So I normally wouldn't recommend it, but it's something to keep in mind. Even this one, Castitas, I would keep in mind, but Humanitas is definitely a must-have skill in my personal opinion. Moving on to Skills Group 2, we have an AoE Sunburn, 30 light base damage, 25 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown, and an all across the board Sunburn. I personally really like Sunburn. I think it's one of the better torture effects over time. Not only does it take away HP from the enemy, it also reduces their accuracy, which I love. We also have a skill that deals heavy special damage, special meaning 50 damage, 16 stamina cost, 3 turn cooldown, and you get a 25% light shield, a 25% life shield. Not the most impressive in my personal opinion, but again, this monster is a tanky tank. You can probably put a life rune or 2 on this monster, maybe a team life. So that 25% could be quite significant. It does, however, have a pretty high 3 turn cooldown. Moving on, we have this skill, which reminds me a lot of Neobuki. Caritas applies evasion to all allies. Neobuki can do that. You also apply precision to all allies. Neobuki doesn't do that. Neobuki gives herself taunt. But this is great. So your team is protected from all effects, basically, from the enemy. And they get increased accuracy, meaning their attacks aren't going to be missing. And then the downside from this is that it removes positive effects from yourself, which kind of makes sense, right? If your whole team had evasion and you have the taunt, if the enemy even wanted to remove like a positive effect, they'd be forced to do it on this monster. So if this monster was to grant himself evasion and the team evasion, that'd be very powerful. So yeah, the fact that your teammates get evasion and you get precision, you can still protect your team so much. So I personally really like this skill. I think it's another phenomenal skill. Like, he really is. So Caritas from skills group 1, or from skills group 2, and Humanitas from skills group 1. Great skills. And let's move on to skills group 3. We have Industria, which deals moderate special damage to one enemy, 50% chance of applying a random control skill, 50% chance of applying a random control skill. So 50% chance. So 40 special base damage, 27 stamina cost, 2 turn cooldown. And is this skill worth it? I want to say no. Why did it have to be 50% chance on the skill group 3? No. Now, granted, it is double chance to land. You know, it's like double stun. But I don't know. I'm not a fan because of the 50%, especially when every single monster has the hardened trait, or 30% chance, or the bulwark trait. It's just, it's even though it's 2 chances, considering they're both 50, I don't think one of them would land. I would say it's worth getting it. It's worth using the skill and testing it out, seeing if it lands, at least if one of them at least lands, even against a hardened plus monster, that'd be awesome. But if not, I wouldn't run it. I think the only time worth running it is if a monster doesn't have like a hardened plus trait. But let's move on. We have this skill which applies Dark Hater to itself, applies Damage Mirror to itself, requires cooldown. So Damage Mirror, considering you have the taunt trait, is very, very good. All the damage you absorb, you can reflect. This monster also gives himself Dark Hater, so he can attack dark monsters and deal triple damage. I don't believe that if you have Damage Mirror and Dark Hater, that'll apply automatically. So for example, if you Damage Mirror to a dark monster, I don't believe you'll deal triple damage. I believe Damage Mirror is exactly the damage you absorb, is the damage you deal back. I could, however, be wrong because thinking back, I do seem to remember an instance where I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I have this skill mirror. No, I didn't have skill mirror. I had damage mirror, and I think I had some sort of hater, and I was dealing triple damage. But if anyone can let me know in the comments below, if they can verify the way whether this will stack or not, please let me know. I'd be curious to know. Regardless, just the fact that you have damage mirror and you have the taunt trait, I think it's worth using, and you definitely might want to take advantage of this skill. And lastly, we have Fortitude. Applies Megaton to itself, applies daze to enemies, requires cooldown. And so here we have it. This is very interesting. 24 stamina, cost very low. 1 turn cooldown, very, very low. Your Megaton lasts for 3 turns. So if you wanted to, the whole entire game, you can have Megatons. And you also daze the enemy, which reduces, once again, their damage output and the chance of them actually landing attacks against you by 25%. So from this monster, I really like skills group 1, Humanitas. From skills group 2, I really like the team evasion skill. From skills group 3, I like the Megatons. And then it's pretty much up to you. I think I would lean more towards the AoE Sunburn. You want a way to deal damage to all of the enemy monsters. You could, however, go the single damage route. And of course, you could, however, go with the 50% chance of a random control skill. You have the damage mirror you can take advantage of. You have a lot. Like with this monster, it's pretty much gonna be, depending on the situation, you're gonna swap the skills. If there's a team wars where it benefits you to have Dark Hater, run it. If there's a team wars where it benefits you to try to deny, or yeah, run it. Run Industria. It's really going to depend. There is no definite one skill set for this monster. You can even take advantage of the 25% life shield. Keep in mind the life shield and the skill damage mirror work against each other, because in order for you to actually reflect damage, you need to absorb damage. If you have a shield and the shield is taking the damage, you're not going to be reflecting anything with your damage mirror. So those are just some things to keep in mind. But with that being said, that is going to conclude my analysis on Clipeum. Overall, I gotta say, I really, really like this monster. I love that he's a tanky tank, a truly tanky tank, with really good relics. I love that you can't stun this monster, you can't mega stun this monster, you can't apply bleeding to this monster. I really like that he has a support skill that grants him an immediate extra turn, and it wipes out all negative effects from one of your allies, and it also gives that ally stamina regen. I love that this monster has a DOT. I love that the Megaton and the AoE daze only has a 1 turn cooldown. I think that's quite amazing. And did I already mention that I love the team evasion skill? That can protect so many of your allies. So yeah, phenomenal monster with phenomenal skills in my personal opinion. But now I want to hear from all of you guys. Oh wait, the ultimate. I love the ultimate. It's a crazy ultimate. Very good. And now I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about Clipeum? Let me know in the comments below. I am so looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts on this monster. Thank you very much, and I will see you all next time.